Last summer, Halton region suffered massive flooding. Storms that came around once a decade are now occurring much more frequently. And one of the steps you can take to defend your home against flooding is the installation of a device called a sump pump. Burlington-based company Wolseley Inc. specializes in these devices, and thus I spoke with their director of sales support, Allan Elliott, about how sump pumps work and what installation entails. But first, Allan wanted to provide some simple tips that every homeowner can do to prevent water from getting into your home.
Well, there's a low-hanging fruit everybody could see. I mean, you look at eave troughs in everybody's places, especially in the fall and in the spring. Nobody cleans them out. They batch into the things. They create, when a storm comes, the water overflows, rolls down the walls, down into the base or down into the foundation, creates a big mess. And a lot of people are putting on the eave trough the leaf gutters, the leaf protectors. That has helped humongously on a lot of areas for the people. And what happens too on the downspouts, they get so cramped, they blow off again. There's a big bunch of water coming down the foundation again, which creates a real mess. And it's real preventable, simple like that. And the other thing people are doing, everybody likes doing their flower beds, and they're also mounting up to the houses. Well, they created a bit of a sump pit in a sense, because water comes down, sits in there. They say you should, like in the plumbing world, every every quarter inch per foot slope the other way, right? So if it's sloping away from the house, that will help that kind of overflooding things and goes out to your yard or over to the ditch. Those are a couple of simple things that can be done that will, prevent that chaos that would happen later on.
Yeah, naturally, you want to take those first steps in sloping all water away from the house. I get it. But if the water does get into the house, and sometimes it's just not preventable, I mean, it's going to go through your weeping tiles, but it could also find its way to a sump pump. Now, I want to talk about sump pumps themselves. For people who don't know, they might have heard the term. What is a sump pump? What does it do?
Well, sump pump is a key factor in I would say, your utility room in your basement. It's usually installed in a sump pit at the lowest point of the basement. So as you say, the weeping tiles around the house, comes into a low area, and then it's piped through the wall into the sump pit. And from there, the pump is installed, and that pumps the water out of there, because that water will, from your foundation, come right into the sump pit, and that pump will pump it out either to the sloping of the yard, to the ditch, or even to a storm sewer if you're allowed to in the municipality. In a lot of areas today, sump pumps are law in the code to be in certain areas. And so you see what happens when they falter or whatever. If they don't have them set up properly, it creates a real mess.
Yeah, and we've seen mess after mess just with the changing weather patterns. So now I understand if you have a new build and the sump pump is right in the home, that's easy to do because you can build it right into the infrastructure. But in an existing home, how intrusive is the installation of a sump pump?
It's pretty massive, to tell you the truth. You basically,
Allan, that's not what I wanted to hear. That's not what people wanted to hear.
but there's ways around it. So, the proper way is to dig around the foundation and, put a proper weeping tile into it. And you have to cut a hole in your basement floor, tie the pipe through. It's very massive and costly to do that part. But some have done called a French drains. Basically, they created around the house about 12 to 18 inches of pipe and crushed stone and covered up, and they kind of slope it and drain it to certain areas, to a ditch or a low point area. It's probably, which is a lot cost effective than trying to dig it all or your foundation out.
Now, it will help, Allan, but it's not necessarily going to take care of everything. But occasionally, when you get so much water, drains are full, water can come up through the drains. That can be prevented with a sump pump unless the power goes out. Do you have any tips on power backups for a sump pump and how that can be done in a home?
For sure. We just experienced in Northern Ontario here the massive ice storm, which created with the rainstorm as well, create a power outage for up to 1 day to 7 days. And you never seen so many people did not have generators, so it was, and didn't have no battery backup. And that's been a key factor that a lot of plumbers are putting in now. They put the sump pump in, but they also put a battery backup, which basically they plumb it, to a point in the pit that is a little higher than the other one. When the other one falters, no hydro, it automatically takes over, and it lasts 8 to 12 hours basically on a battery charge. So very important to have. And I see more and more people are putting the dual system in, normal sump pump, then plumb, and they put a battery backup.